first item on the agenda is approval of the draft agenda. Any changes to the agenda as circulated? I don't see any, so then may I have a motion to approve the agenda as circulated? Has been moved, seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Agenda is approved. Next item on agenda is approval of the draft minutes of January 13th, 2025, February 18th, 2025, and March 28th, 2025 meetings of the committee. Any changes to the minutes of January 13th? I see none. May I have a motion to approve the minutes as circulated? Moved, seconded, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, any changes to the minutes of February 18th? See none. May I have a motion? Motion has been moved, seconded, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, any changes to the minutes of March 28th? Seeing none. May I have a motion to approve minutes as circulated? Has been moved, seconded, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, thank you. So next item on agenda, item number 3 is update from the clerk. Kate.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, and good evening, members. Since the committee has last met, it's certainly been a busy period for members as well as for the Legislative Assembly administration, with staff from all departments committed to enabling and supporting the parliamentary calendar of extended and concurrent sittings. I wanted to take this opportunity at the outset of the meeting to extend my appreciation to my colleagues who are working this evening in the Office of the Clerk, the Parliamentary Committee's Office, Hansard Services, and the Office of the Sergeant-at-Arms. We are all very well served by their professionalism and dedication during this very busy operational time. With respect to my clerk's update this evening, I have 3 topics to update the committee on. They include the new strategic plan for the Legislative Assembly administration, an update on our business continuity management program, and our childcare grant application. First, with respect to the new strategic plan, March 31st brought the conclusion of the Legislative Assembly administration's first ever strategic plan with a 3-year lifespan. The administration accomplished a great many things over the lifespan of the first strategic plan, and we're very grateful for the support of members of this committee and our governance subcommittee as we set out on a new vision endorsed by LAMC, a new vision for the legislative administration for the next 4 years. I'm also sincerely very thankful for the staff who worked hard to fulfill the many ambitious and wonderful things that we set out to accomplish together. On April 1st, we launched formally our new 4-year strategic plan, which your committee approved last September 2024, and we're very much looking forward to continuing our good work and to support members and the institution in alignment with our institutional commitment to reconciliation, as well as in support of 4 new strategic pillars, which are supporting our members, engaging our people, modernizing our workplace, and strengthening public engagement. We will look forward to keeping your committee and the subcommittees apprised of our progress as we bring the strategic plan to life over the next 4 years. With respect to business continuity management, last fiscal year, your committee approved additional resourcing to expand the Legislative Assembly's business continuity management program, supporting the operations of the Legislative Assembly, as well as supporting, for the first time, caucus and constituency office operations. We have made good progress to date, and the program expansion approach is making its way to the caucus engagement stage to ensure an informed rollout approach. There's a lot of change happening across our organization, and we certainly want to be thoughtful and measured in our approach. At this stage, I simply wanted to raise it for members' awareness and to have it on your radar. We will be taking an incremental approach and will be, of course, ready to support members and your staff along the way. With respect to the proposed construction of a modular childcare facility, as members will recall, the Legislative Assembly applied for a 2024-25 childcare BC New Spaces Fund grant in February of 2024. The purpose of the grant application was to receive funding to establish a licensed modular childcare facility on the legislative precinct. The grant was proposed to provide funding to cover building costs, operator setup, and other costs that were eligible for funding. Unfortunately, we were just advised on March 27th, 2025, that our application was not successful. So our project team is in the process now of reaching out to the Ministry of Education and Childcare to request feedback on the application, and with the view to a better understanding the specific reasons for the decision, understanding any recommendations for improvement of our submission, and potential timelines for any future funding opportunities. We will maintain the project in a state of readiness and provide a more fulsome update to the Subcommittee on Administration and Operations at our next opportunity. So we're just in the process now of gathering that additional information. But given that we have been waiting for just over a year for a response to that, I wanted to advise the committee of that information this evening. So that is, in essence, the extent of my update. Tonight, I'm happy to answer any questions that committee members may have with respect to any of those items.
Any discussion or questions for Kate? None? Thank you. Thanks, Kate. Item number 4 is diversification of procurement practices. That's a recommendation of the Subcommittee on Finance and Audit. Kate and Kathy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll open and then I'll invite Kathy, our Executive Financial Officer, to speak to this item. This first decision item before the committee this evening proposes to bring forward an update to the committee with respect to our Legislative Assembly Administration's steps to diversify our purchasing and procurement practices in recent weeks, and to seek your approval of a proposed guidance document to assist members and caucuses with a whole of organization approach to navigate through and mitigate against the expected impact of U.S. tariffs. The overall objective is to increase our organizational resiliency and diversify our procurement practices. Since February, our staff have undertaken a detailed review of our procurement, relationships, dependencies, assessed risks, and identified some alternative measures and steps that could be taken. I hope members will agree that the result is a flexible and practical guidance document that will support Canadian purchasing while recognizing the operational requirement for members and caucuses to retain autonomy with respect to their and able to balance regional realities as well. The guidance brought forth and recommended to you this evening was, as the Speaker mentioned, recommended by the Subcommittee on Finance and Audit, and is now brought forward for your consideration. But I'll invite my colleague Kathy Humphrey to speak to it in a bit more detail.
Thank you, Kate, and thank you, Mr. Speaker. So as Kate has mentioned, this report before you summarizes the administration's actions to diversify its practices for purchasing and procurement of goods and services, and to seek your approval of a proposed guidance document to assist members and caucuses, as well as the administration in mitigating the expected impact of U.S. tariffs. As members are well aware, over the past few weeks, the U.S. has introduced and removed tariffs to a variety of Canadian goods. In response, the provincial BC government has announced countermeasures, which include a first step directing BC government and Crown corporations to buy Canadian goods and services first. Other provinces have made similar announcements. On March the 3rd at SFA, we were asked to develop guidance for departments to use in diversifying the supplier base and reducing reliance on single suppliers. This guidance was drafted so that it may be voluntarily used by members and caucuses to assist in their purchasing and procurement practices while enabling a whole of organization approach. Through an enterprise risk management program lens, the administration has taken to review, identify, and assess the activities likely to be impacted by tariffs, recognizing that the tariff landscape is fluid at this point. Our procurement and contracting draft guidance differs from the government's original directives insofar as the government's directive sought to eliminate U.S. suppliers, while the Legislative Assembly administration's focus on a Canada First and diversification strategy. This approach seeks to mitigate risk and ensure that there is best value for the vote ones used by endeavoring to diversify purchasing activities for the Assembly. The overall goal is to purchase Canadian goods and services where possible, and then to seek alternatives which will create a more resilient organization. The administration is also considering where it is possible to buy British Columbia first and where it is appropriate to enhance opportunities for Indigenous suppliers. Caucuses and members' constituency offices directly purchase their own goods and services with a high degree of autonomy. This guidance, which is attached to the decision note, is not directive and is intended to provide a decision-making framework for caucuses and members' constituency office staff to use to help to determine the best option for many of their purchasing decisions which are encountered every day or every week. The guidance aligns with the direction that will be taken by the Assembly administration, but also seeks to ensure the continued autonomy of members and caucuses and recognize that there will be unique purchasing requirements in various parts of the province. With respect to the decision before you today, we recommend that the guidance required for the Assembly administration and be communicated out to members, caucuses, and their staff for voluntary use. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any discussion or question for Kate or Kathy?
I just want to say that this was a lot of work. It was really impressive, the amount of information here. So I'm grateful for the work. I learned a lot about procurement, but really relevant information during these times. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie. Okay. If not, no other questions, so may I have a motion to adopt the recommendation on guidelines for procurement and purchasing practice as presented? It's been moved. It's been seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next item number 5, appointment of disclosure entity under policy 6520, reporting suspected wrongdoing. That's again also recommendation of the subcommittee on administration and operations. Artur?
Great, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good evening, committee members. As the Speaker mentioned, this is a recommendation of the Subcommittee on Administration and Operations. The reporting suspected wrongdoing policy was approved in principle last May, pending full operationalization with the appointment of a disclosure entity to administer the policy at arm's length. The policy fulfills a longstanding commitment to make a whistleblowing mechanism available to staff of the Legislative Assembly Administration. We had an opportunity to make a recommendation last fall to the Speaker on the appointment of a disclosure entity, but we didn't have an opportunity to bring it to the governance setting before dissolution of the last Parliament last September. Whistleblower Security is recommended for appointment as a disclosure entity under the policy. They are a BC-based operation. They have a very strong track record of administering whistleblowing processes and is very reputable in this work. Canadian laws apply, including privacy laws, which informed our recommendation to the Speaker and subsequently the recommendation to the subcommittee, and that decision is now before you today.
Any discussions, questions? None. So then I would need a motion. Motion has been moved, seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item number 6 on the agenda is 2025-26 Policy Development Work Plan. Artur?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is an information item. We are required under the Legislative Assembly Policy Framework to deposit an annual policy development work plan with your committee. We take our obligations very seriously to uphold good governance practices in our operations and to provide certainty in the administrative and financial practices of the Legislative Assembly. Members' input and feedback is very welcome. It doesn't have to be today, at any point in the coming months. And for policies that affect members, caucuses, and constituency offices, we undertake full engagement with caucus staff before bringing the policy revisions or new policies to the governance setting. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Stephanie?
Just noting that, are we supposed to push this?
No.
They do it? Okay. Noting that it talked about the policy gaps that were identified, I'm just wondering if there is, it's going to use the word policy a lot, a policy for policy review being implemented to ensure that policies don't become outdated. It's common for sort of, to ensure that policies are reviewed every 5 years so that people have some confidence that we're not letting policies get outdated and then being caught in a reactionary mode?
Yes. The Legislative Assembly Policy Framework at Section 8 provides that Legislative Assembly policies must undergo a substantive review at minimum every 5 years after they are implemented, with the primary purpose of ensuring that the policy is current and that it continues to meet its intended objective.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Thank you. Thanks, Artur. Next item on agenda is the report on transition to the 43rd Parliament. Kate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker and members, for this opportunity to provide you with a written report of the substantive activities that were undertaken with respect to the 43rd Provincial General Election. In the months following, as background, in the months that followed the 2020 provincial general election, it was broadly recognized that there were many areas of improvement that could have been undertaken within the administration to better prepare for that general election, but also to support members through the offboarding and onboarding processes which followed. We formally established a new program in May of 2023, an election readiness and transition program, the first time we had formally managed an election transition in that way, and with the assistance of a very dedicated team, in essence guided the institution through a whole of organization approach to planning and supporting departing members and arriving members through the resulting transition periods. So this report before you this evening outlines some of the activities that were undertaken in different streams of work to provide a unified service experience for members through our client care service desk. Supporting that client care team, the 2024 transition team also saw for the first time the introduction of a model of liaison officers that were onboarded and hired to assist individual members. They were redeployed staff, sessional staff from other departments within the Assembly, and they did an exceptional job of being the primary point of transition contact for our new members. I must also, in addition to the client care team, the information technology team did an incredible job of providing rapid deployment of information technology devices to members. This had been a significant pain point in 2020 for any members who may recall that transition period will remember it took a very long time for our members to receive their IT package, but I'm very pleased with the results of the user satisfaction ratings, both for the client care team and the IT team, which reflected their incredible efforts during the transition period. This election period also saw some significant changes to our model of providing support to constituency offices with respect to their leasing services. So we established a new leasing support team supported by an external commercial leasing provider, which oversaw and supported this new model of constituency office leasing, which included a number of significant changes. First, the transition from member-held leases to leases held by the Legislative Assembly of British Columbia with centralized support provided by the administration. We also developed and introduced for the first time accommodation guidelines to ensure a consistent approach throughout the province. And then we also developed and implemented a new leasing dashboard, which provided members and their teams with ongoing notification of progress as the leasing negotiations unfolded, as well as tenant improvements. So the leasing support team continues to support members with the transition process, and as noted on page 4 of the report, we are also looking ahead to continuous improvements in this area, and we have incorporated constituency office leasing support into our internal audit planning for 2026-27. I'll just briefly touch on a few of the other initiatives outlined in the report. Of course, with the addition of 6 new electoral districts, we saw a significant growth to the institution overall through the enactment of the Electoral Districts Act. So the administration ensured that we, of course, accommodated the extra seating with a chamber, a new chamber layout, as well as new office space that was created on the precinct. With respect to constituency office upfits, we work closely with our security team and our information technology team to provide enhancements for both the network and security requirements around the province of British Columbia. We also provided a great deal of support throughout the transition period with departing members and transition seminars as they wound down constituency office operations, and then in conjunction with recommendations from the Reconciliation Action Plan and the report on the Working Group on Parliamentary Culture really tried to step up with the learning and development opportunities that were made available to members and their staff, as well as members who are returning as well. So we've recently launched a series of learning opportunities. Those at first included some on-demand learning for new members that were basically at the member's own initiative to access learning information online. We had some live virtual sessions, some in-person on-site learning opportunities, which we very much enjoyed delivering MLA School, both first in November of 2024 with respect to some essential operational and administrative information, followed in February of 2025 with MLA School, the Parliamentary Procedure Edition, intended to provide members with the initial information procedural knowledge to support them in their procedural duties. I'm grateful for all of the teams within the administration that contribute significantly to the election transition supports. Going forward, we're very much open to hearing any feedback from members as we prepare for a state of always having a readiness to plan for any future election transitions, including improving our service experiences and ongoing improvements and additions to our learning and development program.
Mike?
Does every MLA have a constituency office yet? Or if not, how many don't?
I think we have some updates.
17, I guess.
Yeah. So, that's correct, yeah. So we have a number of members who have opted to seek new office space, and so as of March 31st, we've got 61 lease renewals that have been signed. We have leases for 11 new spaces that have been signed and 12 in negotiation. I know a number of members who had opted to give up their office space, sometimes as a result of redistribution, continue to be supported by our team to find appropriate office space.
That's like how many still have not found appropriate? That's really my question.
There are, I think we'll get the right number, but for example, in my case, I'm still working from my old office, which is outside of my constituency boundaries, but we are just signed the lease for the new space, which is now going to go through extensive renovations. They'll take another few months before I'm able to move there.
That's fine, because you've got an office, but how many do not have an office?
My understanding is approximately half a dozen do not at this time have an identified office space. I will also mention that in some cases where members have more than one constituency office, I understand that we are still supporting them. So they have at least one constituency office in those cases.
What I was wondering is how many do not have a constituency office?
We can circle back with
okay.
a precise count, but my understanding is approximately
Because what
half a dozen.
concerns me is we are now October, November, December, January, February, March. I mean, 7 months, right? Like that's getting a bit much. I mean, we moved to, the new system, and I'm concerned about how long it is taking to get members in their offices. 7 months is a long time to be trying to make excuses to your constituents. Well, I haven't got an office yet, right? So I'm just wondering if we can review the, let's put this way, I think we need to review it because I think that's a problem.
Yeah, go ahead.
So if you look on page 2 out of the 6 for office leasing support, there's information on there that says 25 new spaces were existing, okay. 61 lease renewals have been signed and 11 new leases.
I'm aware of that, but it's how many do not have an office at all?
Well, there's a handful of them, at least I know in our caucus. I don't know about your caucus.
And that's my question. It's like, it's one thing if the lease is in renewal or they've done a whole bunch of, that's fine. But the idea that an MLA who's elected in October, and we are now in the middle of April, does not even have an office location, right? That's not even under lease negotiation, to me, is a problem.
Yeah, I agree.
It is, I will just acknowledge a top priority for the administration. We're monitoring it on a day-to-day basis. We do have a very dedicated leasing support team, and they are working very closely with the external the external leasing service provider to do everything we can to identify space at the earliest opportunity. It has proven to be a challenge, unfortunately, in some electoral districts where they may have limited options for suitable space, but we are trying to approach this in a proactive way and also to be flexible. We want to ensure that members get the very best space that they can. We're guided by the policy, but where we can take a practical approach, you're certainly open to any additional suggestions or observations from members of the committee.
Janet?
Yes, early on, when there was some anxiety that was being expressed amongst MLAs, I think it was the client care team, whoever was, I think there may be a subcommittee of the client care team, were meeting with me a couple times as government whip to put me in the picture and do some problem solving. And it might be useful to, and some of the reasons that they gave were out of their hands. It had to do with, the local availability. It had to do with costs, various things. They were working away at it. But one of the things we also talked about was the importance of having backup plans. That if a particular MLA does not have an office, they have to be able to work somewhere else or work in another MLA's office, something, so that there is presence.
Okay. Stephanie?
Thank you. As a new MLA, I got to go through most of the things that were responded to here, and I would just say that I think this is the one area, the office leasing support, and it is absolutely not the fault of the folks who were supporting people. I think they were excellent with what they had, but there were some gaps, and I think that it's probably the one area that we do need to do a little bit of a SWOT analysis in preparation for the next time to make sure people are properly supported in order to do. There was a worst case scenario here where there was much bigger transition than people perhaps had planned for. So I think there's some opportunity for improvement, and we are aware of it, and thank you.
Mike?
Yeah, no, and I raise this because it's not new. Last election, there were, I know one of the BC United MLAs, I think it was 18 months before they got the lease signed, which again is not acceptable. There was another MLA, and this is where in the legislature, I think, has the ability to make it clear to a potential landlord that just because you don't like the political party does not mean that that's a legitimate reason to say, I'm not going to rent to you. That was also the case with one of the MLAs. And it was, it was like, the opposition had that problem, government had that problem, and I think it's something that we really need to come to grips with, because at the end of the day, and it's something that has occurred relatively recently in the last, I would say the last 10 years. Prior to that, you got elected, you went, office space was found reasonably quickly. There were some different issues back then. One was where you only got $1,500 to rent a place, and in the case of Emery Barnes in the West End, he had to fundraise to pay the monthly rent because the legislature would only pay $1,500 of the rent. So, we solved all those problems, but we still have problems. And I think this, 7 months after an election that an MLA does not have a constituency office, and I get there's reasons for that, we need to find a better way of ensuring that they're able to get into an office as quickly as possible, because, the public are going, what's going on?
I can attest to that.
Jody?
I can agree. So I'm on that committee that Janet was talking about. And so I had a caucus member that could have potentially gone into a previous space, was willing to go into that space, and landlords just jumped around, wouldn't give an answer for a couple of months, didn't give an answer, so they couldn't go and seek a new location. This is a brand new riding, and eventually came back and said, well, we can't because we have a union space in this building, and it conflicts with the other party. So it's teachers union in that space, and they wouldn't want our MLA in there anymore. So it took a long time until they got that answer out of them, because they wouldn't give an answer of why. So I understand the frustration, because now that pushed that back over 3.5 months of just waiting to being, are we going to be able to go into this space or not? So the frustration from the caucus member, and then having to restart again. So we've had that, where we've gone into those meetings where a lot of people are having those frustrations of not getting an answer quickly.
No, that's not right. First off, it's discriminatory and it's not allowed.
All right? Sorry, John?
I was just going to ask, if the issue is the amount of rent per month, for those MLAs that are paying less than what's allowable, is there any room for, paying robbing from Peter to pay Paul, so to speak? Is that possible, or it's just case by case?
It's not.
I would say it's primarily case by case, finding a suitable location that meets our general requirements with respect to accessibility and security provisions that members need. We will absolutely do everything we can to try to assist members, keeping them informed, ensuring that they have the choices in front of them. But I would say it's more complex, Joan, than simply the budgetary the costs. I know our leasing support team have a lot of expertise in terms of the commercial leasing market. It can be quite complex at times, and we're happy to play on that facilitating role to avoid the kinds of scenarios that Ms. Tour has described, and in which there could be a conflict between the MLA and the prospective landlord in some cases. So we're learning a lot through this process. We're very happy to continue to improve and to use your feedback to ensure our next efforts at subsequent in the years ahead will benefit from these lessons learned. I do think it was a challenge with respect to the number of members who wanted to have new space, and so I think the team did a really good job and to try to highlight some of the challenges with the change of offices. Finding alternative locations often does take, unfortunately, more time than is first anticipated. So we're certainly looking forward to continuing to improve the process and to learn from these experiences.
Anyone else? No. Thank you. All right, let's move on to item number 8, 2024-25 quarter 2 and quarter 3 financial updates. Kathy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We just now have the opportunity to bring these reports before the committee. The quarter 2 report is ending September 30th. The quarter 3 report is the one ending December 31st. They have both been presented to SFA ahead of this meeting. Just briefly, in September, quarter 2 forecast reflected significant uncertainty regarding the October provincial general election results, as we didn't know what the results would be at September 30th, and was forecasting pressures due to some unbudgeted transition expenditures, which were anticipated, combined with some expectation of some unbudgeted accounting and extraordinary policing costs. By the time we got to December's quarter 3 report, the results in the forecast had been adjusted to reflect the actual results of the election, but still reflected a significant amount of uncertainty in terms of the timing of things like we just spoke about in terms of leases and how quickly the lease would be set up, and the cost to establish the leases and other transition activities. In quarter 3, we were still projecting a fairly optimistic forecast for completion of many of the initiatives throughout the last quarter. However, with the Assembly administration focused on supporting members through the election transition and the delays in getting started on some of the projects, many of these projects were not completed before the end of the year. And as you will see in the next report at the end of Q4, we have closed out the year with an underspend reflecting the election costs that were not needed to be spent, as well as some projects that didn't get completed throughout the year. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any question, any discussion? No? None? Thank you. So next item is any other business? Mike.
Yeah, I'd like to raise an issue. It's related to MLA accommodation. I know there's been a guideline in place for quite some time since the original members' review of their pay, pension, and benefits was put in place well over, coming not far off 20 years ago now. And that is when MLAs who own their own place are currently prohibited from renting a room or a unit there to other MLAs. I think we should review that. I think times have changed. I think there's a number of issues of concern, particularly about when it comes to safety of individual MLAs. And I'm thinking back to some of our women MLAs, that they felt safer when they were able to share a place together. It's one thing being able to do it when you are, renting, sharing another accommodation, but I do think when an MLA does own a place here, has been here for a long time, that if they want to be able to rent a room out to another MLA, they should be able to do that. Right now, they're not able to, and I'd like for us to review that policy to have a look at what options there are.
Okay. Any comments? Any discussion? Artur?
You want to go?
Sure. We're currently reviewing the member allowances policy, and I think that actually has been addressed in a version that the Subcommittee on Administration and Operations received last August, but the subcommittee requested some edits to it. We are prepared to bring it forward at the June 9th meeting of the subcommittee, but if it needs to be dealt with on a more timely basis.
If we could deal with it more timely basis, that would be great, because I know it is a challenge for some members, and it would be well received, I think.
Okay. Thank you very much. And I guess now the motion is in place for adjourning. It's been moved, seconded, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. This meeting is now adjourned.